Hi, I'm Nancy with Creative Cutz. Today I'm going to show you how to put together shape albums using your own shapes that you cut on your electronic cutter. And the shape that you use can be anything from, a house to a heart, just depending on the theme of the book that you're putting together. So today we're going to be making a simple bracket album. And this is the shape of the album that we're going to be creating. And this file is actually available on my blog, and the address is right there on your screen. It's creativecutz.com. So this file is available in SVG, MTC, and PDF format, just depending on what software you use. Now when you cut out the file, obviously you'll need to cut a number of copies of it. And first of all, for the front and back cover for my album, I decided to make them a little bit heavier. So what I've done is cut 2 copies of the shape out of the thin cardboard, and that's going to be the inside of the front and back cover. And then you'll also need to cut a number of pages, and the number of pages that you cut depends on how many pages you want your album to have, number 1, and number 2, whether or not you're planning on using both sides of the paper as your page, or in my case, I wanted to use different sides, so what I had to do was cut 2 copies of the shape for each page that I want in my album, and then just attach them together. So I'm going to show you how to create the front cover, and then we'll put the rest of the album together. So what I'm going to do is sandwich the cardboard in between my 2 paper shapes, just like this, and that's going to give me a nice stiff cover to start my album off. So I'll just set those pieces to the side, and I'm going to take my ATG gun, and I like to use this because I can just run the adhesive almost right off of the edge when I'm doing this, so that I can get it right at the edge. I find that working with liquid glue, even though it gives you more coverage, sometimes it can tend to kind of curl your paper and buckle it a little bit. So I'll just run this right around, and I'm not worrying that the adhesive is going off of the edge of my shape, because with this adhesive, what I can do is just bring it back on itself, just like that, very easily. So I've got a few spots there where it went right over the edge. I'm just going to bring it back so that there's nothing hanging over. Just like that. And now I'm going to take the first shape and just line it up carefully with the cardboard cover. And it might take a couple of tries to get this lined up perfectly. That looks pretty good. And then I need to do the same thing on the other side. So I'll just run my adhesive again. And one nice thing about the ATG is that you can actually kind of go around corners with it as well, which makes it a little bit easier for doing something like this. Didn't quite get the edge there, so I'm just going to go back over that. I find when I go around corners frequently on something, the tape starts to just kind of slide off the roller, so I just need to stop and slide it back on. Okay, so I'll just make sure that all the adhesive is in, and I'm going to put a little bit more right on the edge there. Didn't quite get that right to the edge. Okay, that looks pretty good, and I'm going to attach the other side of the page to that. So again, just carefully lining it up. And then just adhere the whole thing down. So there's my front cover. And then I'll just show you, I've already gone ahead and put the rest of the pages together. So I have several pages here where I've glued 2 papers together to form the inside pages. And then on the back cover, I did the same thing where I had the cardboard in the center and then 2 sheets of paper, 1 on each side, to form the inside and the outside. Now another thing that I like to do when I'm making an album like this is just ink the edges a little bit. Just because there's going to be a white core in the middle, and it makes it look a little bit more finished. So I'm going to take an ink pad. If I can get the lid off, there we go. And then I'm going to use this little tool from Color Box, and it's just basically a foam tool. And the foam tips come in a number of different shapes, they just pop off and on. But I find that this is nice for inking edges, especially on something like an album that's shaped, because you can get right in the corners and curves there, which is a little bit harder to do if you're just using your ink pad itself. And the other thing is that inking edges tends to kind of chew up your ink pad a little bit, so this saves your ink pad. So that just gives it a little bit more of a finished look with a little bit of color on the edge there. And if you don't have one of these, the foam tip is basically the same consistency as a makeup sponge. So you can use that as well for the same effect. There we go. And I'm just going to brush away the little bits of sponge that came off. Okay, so there's my front cover. I've got the rest of my book here. Now I need to punch some holes, and you can see that I've already punched holes in most of my pages. And usually what I do is I'll start with one, and in this case I punch the back cover first, and then I use that as a guide to punch the rest of the pages. So I'm going to take my back cover and just line it up with the front cover. And then I'm going to take my crocodile, and this thing is great for punching holes because it will punch a hole in just about anything. And I'm just lining up the hole that I've already punched right through the crocodile hole. And then the second hole. And there we go. So there's my front and back covers. So now I can put the whole book together. And then the last step is just to attach the book. Now I like to use these little jump rings when I'm putting my mini albums together, and you can get these at just any stationery store, Staples or anything like that, and they're fairly inexpensive. And I'm just going to run it through the holes and snap it together. And then of course once your book is all finished, you can add some ribbon and things onto that to dress it up a little bit. But there's a very cute little bracket album, all finished and ready for photos and embellishments.